Welcome to Ukraine, with your host, GazProm.
Beloved, greetings! In our last episode, Putin the Thief in the Night, we established that constitutionally in Russia, presidents such as Putin are forbidden to have bank accounts in foreign nations. The way Putin gets around that constitutional limitation for money without the Federal Legislature, the Duma, their participation, is to establish a service like PPP or gain a significant ownership of profitable companies like GazProm for gas, Rosneft for oil, as many as are available. Then from these transfer as much as possible of the net profit to foreign bank accounts, mostly in Switzerland or Cyprus. Once that money is outside the country, then Putin can use that money in illegal foreign wars, take over neighboring countries, and yes, transfer money directly to foreign bank accounts, not in his name, but through others that he controls. Beyond pursuing militarily the takeover of many countries, Putin attempted to make himself a possible retirement and family fortune as the richest human on the planet. He accomplished a lot, but did not reach this goal. So what is wrong with Putin making himself rich? Because this is corruption. Putin is selling his office, the presidency of Russia, at the expense of the Russian nation and the Russian people. Look, Russia is a vast nation, rich in resources and with great economic potential. But none of that really happened for the Russian population because Putin is stealing the profits of Russia to enrich himself. The whole nation then suffered, leaving the whole country, except for Moscow and St. Petersburg, to be nothing better than slum without decent infrastructure, no future for the people of Russia to become prosperous. Simply put, Putin, by taking care of number ones himself, is treasonous to the entire country. All this could be fixed, and Russia could have a bright future, but not with Putin buying off with bribes the entire legislature and appointing only yes-men who look the other way in the courts. Putin must be retired, and the mechanism allowing the nation's wealth to be stolen has to be reformed. The goal of this video is to begin listing to the world as well as the Russian people the extent of Putin's theft of Russia's national income. Hopefully then, the world and even in Russia there will be both an awareness and a political consensus that the end of Putin is necessary so that the need to end political corruption will become a priority for the nation. When you have billions and possibly trillions in investment and business outside the country, as a practical man, Putin has to have someone he trusts living outside the country to represent him when necessary. Many people have assisted Putin in the past, but right now, his present girlfriend, Alina Kabayeva, fills the profile of the person most close to Putin to manage his affairs outside Russia, of course, with the necessary guidance. Putin and Kabayeva do not admit publicly to being married, but Alina Kabayeva does wear a wedding band and has fathered 4 children of Putin. Further, there are reports that Kabayeva and Putin were married by a Russian Orthodox priest, although Kabayeva has lived with Putin for years, some at Putin's residence at Lake Valdy, but then later in the penthouse Putin built a half-mile away at Royal Park, Sochi. But for the last dozen years, Kabayeva and the couple's children live now in Lugano, Switzerland, or other European destinations. Putin has the potential of many residences. I will cover the ones he truly uses. I will cover the high-profile property of Vladimir Putin and Alina Kabayeva. In summary, are the real estate assets Putin and his supporters claim for propaganda, 17 billion, 485 billion in US dollars. But Putin has stolen this all from all Russia. Some are in Russia, but upon analysis, Putin's claims are lies. My study is that by the end of this year, his personal wealth, less foreign bank accounts, will be likely $2,005,000. The most valuable, where the couple can live, are in Switzerland and the French Riviera. However, this is wartime, and in terms of housing, yachts, and all aircraft, very little of Putin's real estate will outlast the Ukraine war, and much of it was never real in the first place. In terms of real value, Putin has $2,005,000 in assets. 98% of this is in his watch collection. However, this does not cover his Swiss bank account, other investments to Putin in friendship and for financial influence. Putin is not now and has never been the richest human on this planet. But as to Swiss bank accounts and stocks, these are very fragile, if not fleeting assets that may disappear like a morning mist upon the ground. The policy of the Switzerland government for hundreds of years is that funds within Swiss bank accounts are private and secret to the owners of those accounts. However, there is a vast difference between being secret and being otherwise unknown. The fact is that as a matter of Swiss national security policy, the Swiss government monitors and knows the exact value of all funds on deposit in Swiss bank. As confirmed by the official communiques of the Swiss ministry, even now, the Swiss government knows exactly what funds are on deposit, controlled by Russians who are under EU and US sanctions, and thus the Swiss government has its own Swiss sanctions list. Vladimir Putin is a war criminal whose actions have killed over 1.5 million lives, and all the money credited to him in Swiss bank are known by the Swiss government to be the results of criminal money laundering. Because Putin is at this time president of Russia, Switzerland is not going to deny the deposits of its Russian deposits, even if they are war criminals. Putin will be 72 years old in 2024. Putin has alcohol dementia, a form of Alzheimer's disease, which is 100% fatal in time, which has already compromised Putin's mental capacity now, and that same dementia will only continue to worsen until Putin dies. Switzerland may tolerate Putin's bank balance while Putin is in office now, but if he tried to remove all those funds for deposit to other countries like Cyprus, those transfers would be blocked by the Swiss banks and Swiss government. Thus, all Putin's balances in Switzerland, not Cyprus, appear now essentially frozen, while Putin's bank account in the Russian commercial bank RCP of Cyprus appears not to be frozen. Fortunately for Putin, none of these Swiss bank accounts are in his name, but Elena Kabayeva, his female partner in life, who has Swiss citizenship and thus the right in Swiss courts to defend those funds she holds in trust with and for Putin. Once it's still alive at the end of 2024, he likely will have convertible assets worth less than 1.5 million. But the size of his bank deposits, Switzerland, Cyprus, remain a closed secret. Second, we will examine where Putin lives now. Putin has 21 residences, only one a small apartment in St. Petersburg in his own name. Everything else hid in the names of others. Putin has been in power 22 years. So as you see, he has been methodically accumulating one residence after another, essentially one for every year he's been in office. Putin has declared that he owns a 400 square foot apartment in St. Petersburg. I've searched for this apartment and have not been able to find it. But upon Putin's own disclosure, let us conclude that the apartment is real. Wherever in St. Petersburg this apartment is, it's only 40 feet by 20 feet. A single bedroom with bath, small living room, and a kitchen. Putin has likely owned this apartment for over 35 years, and being a small apartment in St. Petersburg is likely quite dilapidated and could not be used as a home by anyone unless it was refurbished. So for right now, Putin has an apartment that he owns St. Petersburg, likely worth about $5,000 US. His current residence is actually in an apartment in the Kremlin, where Putin goes when he is too tired to go anywhere else. Putin's third is Novoogoryevo, a mansion 14 miles from his Kremlin office. It belongs to Russia, having been completed during the time of the USSR. Every president of Russia has the right to claim a building for their home that they will be able to live in for free during their lifetime. Putin chose Novoogoryevo. This Novoogoryevo mansion was first built in the first half of the 1950s as a villa during the Soviet era by Soviet Premier Georgy Melenkov. The site is, after all, conveniently located close to the Kremlin, so that the Premier Melenkov's building Novoogoryevo made good sense. However, when Melenkov was moved from power, the project was, other than for civic use, abandoned and remained a white elephant through President Yeltsin's term of office, who, other than doing his job as president, had no attraction to having a mansion, even though it was conveniently located in Moscow for his personal use. Under President Putin himself recognized the value of the residence and took it over as his primary residence outside of the Kremlin, and has it renovated a number of times. Building and the grounds are now in excellent condition. Novoogoryevo was just there for not being used much at all, so Putin lucked out in getting this very nice mansion for free and all but ready for his immediate use, rent-free, for the remainder of his life. Putin's Palace and Nikolai Shemilov. Dovote Putina! Putin's Palace, a $1.4 trillion intended resort casino. Could or is this huge facility really one of Putin's residences? No, niet. Definitely not, but Putin's propagandists will tell you that it is one of his residences. Putin is just so wealthy. No, not for me. I would prefer to say nothing and ignore this entire facility dedicated to greed as a sham. The building, much of Putin's life, is simply too over the top, if not idiotic, that unfortunately it demands explanation. So, Pastor Bert, what is that behind this $1.4 trillion monument to debauchery, excess, and conspicuous consumption? And by no means not a reverse Disneyland on the Black Sea. The owner, the creator, a person you would never want to meet on a dark alley, is Nikolai Shemilov, professionally trained as a dentist. There's a lot of pain in a dentist's office. Dr. Nikolai Shemilov appeared to enjoy that pain too much, that his patients eventually all left him. Unable to butcher any more dental patients, Shemilov gave up dentistry and began selling medical equipment for Siemens Medical in 1992 in St. Petersburg. Siemens fired Shemilov for bribery and money laundering. Who would have guessed that? Politics attracts all kinds, which is where Shemilov met and befriended Vladimir Putin, then active in city government. Their friendship was like two poisonous vipers dancing together while seeking to kill each other. Putin, as a snake, is drawn to other snakes, was convinced by Shemilov to be the sugar daddy for a new company, Petromed. Putin then hired Shemilov to head Petromed, to buy and sell medical equipment, and hired Shemilov to run the business, and pressured other Russian oligarchs to buy medical equipment and make charitable contributions to Petromed. Why? from which Shamalov took a large share of each inflated sail. Petromed was quite successful, but Shamalov kept all the money. With the proceeds of those sales, Shamalov bought shares in the Rosneft Bank, a state bank, and other businesses. In 1993, Shamalov, along with Putin and others, also formed Ozero, which began building Putin's palace in 2005 that Nikol Shamalov alone owns, using money funneled from Zurich banks and the Rosneft Bank. Shamalov purchased then shares in GazProm and became a director there as Putin's palace, a $1.4 billion casino erected on the Black Sea coast near the Krasnodar, Korea, Russia, using money funneled from Zurich banks and the Rosneft Bank. Putin's palace was and remains a huge complex, 39 times larger than Putin's eventual villa on the French Riviera. Nikolai Shamalov had two sons, Yuri and Kirill. Putin had two daughters, Maria and Katrina, by his first wife, Ludmila. Putin's daughters were not fans of their father because of how their father treated their mother, to the extent that the eldest daughter, Katrina, had her last name changed from Putin to Tikhanova, her grandmother's maiden name, because she did not want to be known as Putin's daughter, nor honor him as her father. Nikolai Shamalov proposed to Putin that his lawyer son, Kirill Shamalov, should marry Putin's 36-year-old daughter, Tikhanova, a Moscow scientist involved in artificial intelligence. Like feudal lords, the two fathers pushed their two children into what? Holy matrimony? For real? Son Kirill Shamalov's benefited greatly from his marriage to Putin's daughter, gaining a personal wealth of over $2 billion. Thus, a happy ending then in cementing two powerful Russian families coming together. No, hey, I'm sorry, but we all know life don't play that way, homie. Kirill and Katrina had no children. The son Kirill, a new billionaire, blew it, was not faithful to his wife and had many mistresses. But Kirill Shamalov's wife, Putin's daughter, Katrina, you remember her, the one with an attitude who refused to live with the last name Putin and then never took the name Shamalov as her arranged marriage name? That one. She had a life and refused just a rollover. She was also active in the dance community. Finally had an out-of-wedlock daughter with Igor Zelenskyy, a ballet dancer, in 2017. Katrina wanted a child, but Kirill never gave her that child. So Katrina, being resourceful, improvised and had a daughter with a ballet dancer. The son, Kirill Shamalov, responded by divorcing Putin's youngest daughter in 2018, and so by doing this lost half of his fortune in court to jilted Katrina. Let us return from this interlude back to the discussion of Putin's palace. Here are some architectural conceptions put forth by Nikolai Shamalov as to what some of the rooms in Putin's palace were to look like. Can you imagine President Putin living in a casino in a less populated area next to the Black Sea, coming down at night to play roulette with the other casino guests? Here's a picture of the proposed Putin's Palace nightclub. Note the construction of the stripper pole on the proposed dance stage. Can you imagine Russia's president grinding away with a lap dance with the working ladies? Now that there might well bring in real business to the casino. This was the plan by the schemer Nikolai Shamalov for Putin's palace. Right past the slot machines, here is initial design for the video arcade. Imagine now President Putin lending his name to this casino, Putin going there to lightly populated area of the Black Sea for holidays, playing the video games, then the slot machines, after a few nice lap dances with the stripper ladies in the nightclub. Yahoo! Do you think Putin could possibly hear the bells of the jackpot wins from those great slot machines way up in his upstairs VIP hotel room? A great business, right? For the president of Russia? What could possibly go wrong? Meanwhile, Putin is blaming Shabalov's son, and Shabalov is blaming Putin's daughter, for reasons not explained by any of the parties, but that are nonetheless self-evident. Putin's palace just never was finished and was never used for anything. After the divorce of Putin's daughter, Vladimir Putin just lost all interest in Putin's palace, thank God. The casino was never completed and never opened. Putin has never had a financial interest in Putin's palace, so if you ever hear of Putin's palace again, now you know. Putin never lived there. These facts no one could. Dolgi Boradi Lake Valdi, Sochi, as its suburbs are once of Putin's favorite places. He spends a good part of the year in the Russian subtropics. Both his official residence and his secret palace at Cape Idokope are located here. In 2011, Sochi was the living Olympic dream. Investments were flowing into the city. Infrastructure and housing were being constructed. Historically, the building was first built by Stalin in 1939. Stalin's daughter, Svetlana Alayena, was married in the building. Nikita Khrushchev and Boris Yeltsin used this summer home to vacation fish. Vladimir Putin began using the facility in the year 2000. The official Russian state title of the facility remains the Holiday House of Valdi. The Russian state reconstructed and repurposed the main buildings from 2007 to 2010. Putin has no claim to ownership of the building. Future Russian presidents after Putin will likely use the facility as well. The Sochi apartment complex, directly adjoining Valdia property, and is privately owned. The two buildings walk a mile from each other. In between this apartment complex and the Lake Valdia property are a couple smaller buildings, including one that Putin claims is dentist office. But the claimed dentist office isn't really fine. It's a clinic with a fully functional surgical operating. Why? He has medical issues. And if he had a serious medical issue, surgery could be performed right at that clinic by the doctors and specialists who travel with him. It is Putin's nature to hide and lie about everything concerning himself. If Putin had to be treated and he chose to have the procedures done at this Sochi clinic, the press, the Russian public, and the world would not be informed. Putin could then recoup briefly on the day of the procedure at the clinic and then, under the cover of night, be transported, guided by attending doctors and nurses' care, to the much larger Lake Valdia property to recoup there at his residence, so no one would be the wiser. Thus, having this hidden, confidential clinic might be so valuable to Putin as to justify building the penthouse for Alina. Thus, building the flashy penthouse for Alina may well have been a ruse to misdirect attention from the clinic to the flashy penthouse for Alina. Arkady Rot is the owner. Arkady Rot owns the apartment complex at Sochi and has been a friend, associate, confidant, and supporter of Vladimir Putin for 30 years. Rotenberg became a judo trainer. Rotenberg trained Putin in June at Anatoly Bakalin Sambo Club in 19. Rotenberg founded the Yava Novaya Professional Judo Club. This club won 9 European championships and trained 4 Olympic champions. Rotenberg became a billionaire through lucrative state-sponsored construction projects and oil pipelines in conjunction with GazProm. In 2001, Rotenberg and his brother founded the P Bank, operating in 40 Russian cities and with 100 branches, including 900 ATM machines in the Moscow area. In 2007, GazProm paid Rotenberg $45 billion, 300% of original cost, to build a 1,500-mile pipeline to the Arctic Circle. Rotenberg then bought the Northern European Pipe project, which eventually supplied 90% of GazProm's large pipelines, operating at 300% margin. Rotenberg got more pipeline projects. Arkada Rotenberg's firm, Mostaros, further constructed all the toll roads on Russia's federal highways. In 2000, Putin created Rapist with Rosenberg in controlling a state-owned enterprise controlling 30% of the Russian vodka market. Rotenberg persuaded Putin to let him create in 2003 a vodka called Putinka, honoring friend Vladimir Putin. Putin loves alcohol and is an advocate of drinking. Earned from Emira Consultants for the endorsement of the Putinka vodka brand, Ada Rotenberg built the Sochi two-story penthouse, 20 rooms, the largest in Russia, 2,600 square feet, with an outdoor pool with wonderful for Alina Kabayeva. The penthouse features arcade, dining room, finished in marble, and an office and a library and fireplace and a cinema. Vladimir Putin and Alina Kabayeva have no ownership in the Sochi apartment complex or Alina Kabayeva's penthouse. Putin leaves politics. Ada Rotenberg will still own the entire Sochi apartment complex, which he can keep as an investment or sell at his discretion. Putin has no financial right to this Sochi apartment complex. Alina Kabayeva has 5 assistants to help her with children, 2 of whom are cousins. Not keen on a heliport that is hardly used, Alina set up outside the penthouse go-kart track on the heliport for her children, along with large plastic children playground outside the penthouse. Every resident, yacht, and plane of size Putin has, wine cellar, satisfy his need for good champagne. Why Lugano? Wouldn't Putin's remaining a partner in life, residing in a more glamorous home in London, Paris, or Rome? No. With Lugano, this has Swiss banks, and therefore Swiss bank accounts for Putin's financial empire. Switzerland has 3 financial centers, Zurich, Geneva, and Lugano. Switzerland has thousands of private banks, approximately 250 major national banks. 100 of those international banks are headquartered in Lugano, the least public of the financial centers, best for hiding the financial empire. Apparently, Putin, through Kabayeva, established trust in Lugano with one of the banks. Kabayeva also works with Yuri Kovlichuk, Putin's banker, in the management of Putin's accounts in the Russian commercial bank RC of Cyprus, owned by VTB, where much of Putin's offshore accounts are also hidden. The trust holds title LA. The property, mortgage, payments are up to date. The reasoning for this approach is that Alina Kabayeva is a Swiss citizen with legal rights who can be defended in Swiss courts should any move filed against the ownership of her home, the chalet, or against Swiss bank accounts in her name. She and her children cannot be extradited from the country. If Vladimir Putin and Alina Kabayeva was in fact married by that Russian Orthodox priest, then Elena is immune from being forced to testify against Putin if there are any legal action in Switzerland against him. Their legal position in Switzerland is a considerably stronger one if they were to be defending themselves than in Russian courts. Getting money deposited in a Swiss bank account is a fairly simple operation, but moving and taking billions of dollars out of one bank and transferring funds to other banks for any sort of large transaction, the Swiss banks want at least a cosigner on the bank account to sign for the transaction, or even a cosigner to visit their bank offices to enable the transaction to be complete. All transactions can be accomplished through the internet, but large transactions require a visit to the bank. Plus, since Vladimir Putin is essentially not able to leave Russia to visit a Swiss bank to sign faction, Alina Kabayeva represents Apple for banking purposes in Switzerland for Putin's empire. Elena has stayed in other residences in Europe, but ground zero for business transactions for Kabayeva is Lugano, Switzerland. Yuri Kovlichuk a Russian oligarch, owns 80% of the stock in the National Media Group, a pro-Kremlin media organization, Moscow. Kovalchuk holds a PhD in physics, also the largest stockholder in the Rosneft Bank, the financial arm of, listen to this, Communist Party, and what was and may still be the KGB. As the significant stockholder of the KGB, Kovalchuk hired Putin's girlfriend, Elena Kabayeva, as the company chairman and spokesman, signing her an annual salary as being $8 million in what is essentially a no-show job that he performs out of the country in Switzerland. This salary is very important to Elena because it gives her the cash independence from Putin to pay all the local bills and the financial capacity for her and her children to live outside Russia. Elena and her 4 children are residents of Switzerland and travel on Swiss passports. Their children do not have Russian passports. The understanding is that if Putin dies, his and his heirs' fortune are far less at risk from confiscation being in Switzerland than in Russia. The Swiss passports gives Elena Kabayeva and her children entry access to 186 nations, giving her and Putin many offerings. A Russian passport is limited just to 87 countries, many of them to third world nations. Nothing compared to the flexibility of a Swiss passport. Villa from the French Riviera is owned by GazProm, a Russian oil company. The majority of all shares in GazProm are owned by the Russian government, which means that Vladimir Putin controls GazProm and defines who runs GazProm and controls, therefore, the policies. Therefore, because its orders from Putin, GazProm decided Putin's urging to allow Elena Kabayeva and her friends to move into this $5 trillion villa as they wished, which they have done for years as time has allowed. Putin does not own this villa, nor does he have any personal shares in GazProm. Putin and Elena will continue to have access to this French Riviera villa so long as GazProm continues to allow them access. GazProm banks regularly money to Putin to either his Swiss bank account or to his RCB accounts in Cyprus as they are direct. The French Riviera is a nice area for raising children. It takes 3 hours by commercial jet to travel from Lugano, Switzerland to the French Riviera, or 2 hours by a private jet. Elena Kabayeva and her companion, along with the children, have had numerous extended stays here in this beautiful mansion. The weather is magnificent, but what beaches there are, they're quite rocky. However, walking down the stony stairs house, one gets by foot to the Mediterranean Sea in a 2-minute all areas of the rocky beach. Elena Kabayeva and her friends easily get to yachts, then by helicopter or a motorized launch that lands at the water's edge. Having a yacht offshore makes access to the Mediterranean very convenient and enjoyable. If Putin does not die in office, his retirement plan is to remain in Russia. If political freedom becomes threatened, Russia, he will move first to Switzerland and then commute for months on end to the French Riviera, spending most of his time there on his yachts. Putin actively monitorizes the office of being president of Russia every chance he gets. Those who don't know him personally in Russia, Putin is the #1 celebrity in Russia. The value of real estate is always location, location, location. And then the next question is, who owned the property last? Who if an oligarch can say that his vodka is really Putin if he never walked into, or if he did have photos standing in one of the rooms or outside the building itself, and that ups the sales price for the property considerably once the DACA is eventually sold to somebody else. Even propose that Putin lends his name, and this is Putin is doing, using Putin's name as a brand, some real estate development deal, means that expects to be paid up front, even to consider the matter. So long as Putin then makes his cut on the eventual sale or receives money up front as a sign of good faith, Putin is happy. Putin has people on his payroll who do nothing but look for Putin's next real estate opportunity. And while he remains as president, the fact that Putin continues to pick up and At least one new advertised resident every year exercise absolutely no one in Russia. Even if Putin eventually dies, there will be real estate developers who will swear to you that Putin slept on or lived in their property, even if the dacha has yet to be built. Beloved, we have indeed run out of time. In the next episode, we will continue our examination of Putin's wealth. Friends, thank you for visiting Welcome to Ukraine, this series, How to Stop Putin and His Nuclear War. Putin's like a puzzle. You can't begin to understand what Putin is doing unless you lay down and examine every piece of the puzzle, one piece at a time. Do this enough, and you will not only empower yourself, but all of humanity by learning of the threat and the risk to all human life. How to defeat Putin and to stop its nuclear war to save all our lives. Be sure and come back tomorrow for the next installment, for the next step also in solving this hidden puzzle, because this issue is literally life and death for our species. Lives are at stake. Whose? Well, all of ours as well as yours. We must stand against this extinction of all mankind. We must not go quietly into the night. We must bring awareness to as many of our kind to encourage more opposition to Putin's nuclear war. Please help us to help you. Please visit us also on our parent site, Free Ukraine Gives. Remember, beloved, God loves you, so do I. Until the next time, this is your host, Pastor Bert, saying goodbye, friends.